The Nimitz-class carriers entered service in 1975, and the Navy still operates 10 of them. The newest, the Gerald R. Ford class, began deployment in 2017. Both are nuclear-powered, which means they do not require refueling for the entire operational life of the reactor core, typically 25 years or more. A Nimitz-class carrier displaces around 100,000 tons fully loaded. A Ford class displaces slightly more. Each ship carries between 60 and 75 aircraft depending on mission profile. The flight deck is roughly 1,000 feet long. These are not symbolic assets. They are floating air bases that can sustain flight operations for months without returning to port. The role of the carrier is to position strike aircraft, surveillance platforms, and defensive interceptors within operational range of a target area without depending on host nation basing. Carriers do not operate alone. They anchor carrier strike groups that include destroyers, cruisers, submarines, and supply ships. The carrier itself generates sorties. During sustained operations, a Nimitz-class ship can launch and recover aircraft continuously in a cycle measured in minutes, not hours. The Ford class was designed to increase sortie generation rate by roughly 30% through electromagnetic catapults and advanced arresting gear, replacing steam-driven systems that required more maintenance and imposed longer turnaround times between launches. The limitation is not the ship. It is the supply chain and the escort requirement. A carrier cannot defend itself against subsurface threats, cruise missiles, or massed aerial attack without a surrounding defensive screen. It also requires constant replenishment of jet fuel, ordnance, food, and parts. If those supply lines are severed or delayed, the carrier's operational tempo degrades rapidly. The air wing embarked on the carrier is also finite. If aircraft are lost faster than they can be replaced, the ship's striking power diminishes even though the hull remains intact. Carriers are designed for sea control and power projection in environments where the United States already has some degree of air and maritime superiority. They are not designed to operate unsupported in contested littoral zones without significant risk. The Arleigh Burke class destroyer is the most common large surface combatant in the U.S. Navy. There are currently over 70 in service, with more under construction. These ships displace between 8 and 10,000 tons depending on the flight series. They are powered by gas turbines, which provide high speed and rapid acceleration but require more frequent refueling than nuclear propulsion. The primary armament is the Mark 41 vertical launch system, which holds 90 or 96 missile cells depending on configuration. Those cells can be loaded with a mix of Tomahawk land attack cruise missiles, SM-2 or SM-6 surface-to-air missiles, SM-3 ballistic missile interceptors, and VLAS ROC anti-submarine rockets. The Arleigh Burke was designed as a multi-mission platform. It provides air defense for carrier strike groups using the Aegis Combat System, which integrates radar, fire control, and missile guidance into a networked defense umbrella. It also conducts independent strike missions using Tomahawks, anti-submarine warfare using towed sonar arrays and helicopters, and ballistic missile defense when equipped with SM-3 interceptors and appropriate software updates. The ship's AN/SPY-1D radar can track hundreds of targets simultaneously and coordinate engagements across multiple threat axes. The destroyers are not individually survivable against saturation attacks. If an adversary launches more anti-ship missiles than the destroyer has interceptors, or launches them from multiple directions simultaneously, the probability of a hit increases sharply. The ship's electronic warfare systems and close-in weapon systems provide last-ditch defense, but those are designed to handle leakers, not mass raids. The other limitation is missile inventory. Once the vertical launch cells are empty, the ship must return to port or meet a logistics vessel to reload, a process that takes hours and cannot be done under fire. Arleigh Burkes are built for sustained presence and layered defense, not for fighting alone. Ohio-class ballistic missile submarines carry up to 20 Trident II D5 submarine-launched ballistic missiles. Each missile can carry multiple independently targetable reentry vehicles. The exact number per missile is classified, but public estimates suggest up to 8 warheads per missile under current loading configurations. These submarines do not patrol near coastlines. They operate in deep ocean basins where detection is extremely difficult. The hull is designed for minimal acoustic signature. Propulsion is provided by a single nuclear reactor that allows the submarine to remain submerged for months at a time, limited only by crew endurance and food supply, not fuel. The mission is strategic deterrence. As long as these submarines remain undetected and operational, they provide a survivable second strike capability. If an adversary attempts a disarming first strike against land-based missiles or bomber bases, the SSBNs can respond with overwhelming retaliatory force. The submarines do not communicate frequently. They operate under strict radio silence except for reception of emergency action messages, transmitted via very low-frequency systems that can penetrate seawater. This makes them nearly impossible to target preemptively. The constraint is the small number of hulls and the time required to build replacements. The United States currently operates 14 Ohio-class SSBNs, but not all are on patrol simultaneously. Some are in maintenance, others are in transit, and others are in port between patrols. If the fleet size decreases due to aging or accidents, the assured second strike capacity decreases proportionally. There is no rapid replacement option. Submarine construction takes years, and the facilities that can build them are limited. The other limitation is communication. If an SSBN loses the ability to receive valid launch orders, it cannot execute its mission. The submarine is survivable, but the command and control architecture that connects it to national leadership is not. Virginia-class attack submarines are designed for a different mission set. These are hunter-killers optimized for anti-submarine warfare, anti-surface warfare, intelligence gathering, and land attack using Tomahawk missiles launched from vertical tubes or torpedo tubes. The Virginia class is smaller than the Ohio class, displacing around 7,800 tons submerged. It is also quieter and equipped with more advanced sonar arrays, including a spherical bow array, towed arrays, and flank-mounted passive sensors. The submarine carries a mix of Mark 48 heavyweight torpedoes and Tomahawk cruise missiles. The primary role is sea denial and undersea dominance. Virginia-class boats are tasked with tracking adversary submarines, particularly ballistic missile submarines, and ensuring they do not reach launch positions undetected. They also conduct surveillance operations in denied areas, using their stealth to approach hostile coastlines and monitor naval activity, communications, and radiated signals. The Block 5 variant adds a mid-body section with 4 additional vertical launch tubes, increasing Tomahawk capacity significantly and allowing the submarine to function as a persistent strike platform without surfacing or returning to port as frequently. The limitation is numbers and operational tempo. Building submarines is slow. The U.S. currently has fewer than 20 Virginia-class boats in service with additional units under construction. Each submarine can only be in one place at a time, and extended patrols require maintenance windows that reduce overall availability. If the submarine is tasked with intelligence collection in one theater, it cannot simultaneously respond to a subsurface threat in another theater. The other limitation is that detection technology is improving. Advances in non-acoustic detection methods, including wake tracking, magnetic anomaly detection, and satellite-based infrared sensing, reduce the absolute stealth advantage submarines have historically enjoyed. A Virginia-class boat is extremely quiet, but it is not invisible, and operating in shallow littoral waters increases detection risk. The F-35 Lightning II is fielded in 3 variants. The F-35A is a conventional takeoff and landing aircraft used by the Air Force. The F-35B is a short takeoff and vertical landing variant used by the Marine Corps. The F-35C is a carrier-capable variant used by the Navy. All 3 share a common airframe, engine, and sensor suite, but differ in wing size, fuel capacity, and landing gear to meet specific operational requirements. The aircraft is subsonic but capable of supersonic dash, where it carries weapons internally to preserve stealth or externally when stealth is not required and maximum payload is prioritized. The defining feature is not speed or agility, it is sensor fusion. The F-35 combines data from its AN/APG-81 radar, electro-optical targeting system, distributed aperture system, and electronic warfare suite into a single integrated picture that is shared across the aircraft in a formation and with other platforms via data link. The pilot does not manually correlate radar returns with infrared contacts. The system does that automatically. This allows the F-35 to detect, track, and target threats at ranges where older aircraft would still be searching. It also allows the aircraft to operate as a sensor node, feeding targeting data to surface ships, ground units, or other aircraft that may have better weapons but worse sensors. The F-35 is not primarily an air superiority fighter. It is a multi-role strike platform designed to survive in contested airspace, long enough to deliver precision weapons and then exit. It does this by minimizing radar cross-section, managing infrared signature, and employing electronic attack to degrade adversary sensor performance. The internal weapons bay limits payload to 4 air-to-air missiles or 2 bombs plus 2 missiles in stealth configuration. External carriage increases payload but negates stealth. The limitation is cost and production rate. The aircraft is expensive to procure and expensive to sustain. Flight hour costs remain higher than legacy platforms, and depot-level maintenance capacity has not kept pace with the size of the fleet. As a result, mission-capable rates have been lower than planned, particularly for the B and C variants. The other limitation is that sensor fusion depends on software, and software has developmental delays. Updates are frequent but not always synchronized across all 3 variants or international partners. If the software fails or is degraded by electronic attack, the F-35 loses much of its operational advantage and becomes a relatively conventional multi-role fighter with limited payload. The B-52H Stratofortress first flew in 1952. The airframes currently in service were built between 1960 and 1962. None have been produced since. The aircraft is subsonic, non-stealthy, and visually unmistakable. It has 8 turbofan engines mounted on pylons beneath a high aspect ratio wing. The internal bomb bay can carry precision-guided munitions, naval mines, or gravity bombs. The external hardpoints can carry additional munitions or long-range standoff weapons, including the AGM-86 air-launched cruise missile and the AGM-158J ASSM. The B-52 is not expected to penetrate defended airspace. It is a standoff platform. It launches weapons from outside the engagement envelope of most surface-to-air missile systems and then exits. The weapons do the penetrating. This mission profile allows the B-52 to remain relevant despite its age. As long as the airframe remains structurally sound and the engines continue to function, the aircraft can carry new weapons as they are developed. The Air Force is re-engineering the fleet with more efficient turbofans and upgrading avionics, radar, and communication systems to extend service life into the 2050s. The limitation is vulnerability. The B-52 has no stealth features. It radiates a large radar signature and is easily detected at long range. It relies entirely on standoff range and escort aircraft to survive in contested environments. If air superiority is not established, or if adversary air defenses include long-range surface-to-air missiles with ranges exceeding those of the bomber's cruise missiles, the B-52 cannot execute its mission without unacceptable risk. The other limitation is payload flexibility versus volume. The internal bay was not designed for modern, large-diameter weapons, so certain munitions must be carried externally, increasing drag and reducing range. The B-21 Raider is the first new U.S. bomber design to reach production since the B-2 Spirit. It is a flying wing configuration optimized for low observability across multiple radar frequencies. The Air Force has not released detailed specifications, but the aircraft is understood to be smaller than the B-2, powered by 2 engines, and designed for both conventional and nuclear strike missions. The first test aircraft have completed flight testing, and initial operational capability is expected in the late 2000s. The B-21 is designed to penetrate integrated air defense systems that would deny access to non-stealthy platforms. It accomplishes this through shaping, materials, and thermal management that reduce radar, infrared, and acoustic signatures. The aircraft is also designed to operate as a node in a networked kill chain, sharing sensor data with other platforms and potentially controlling unmanned systems. Unlike the B-52, which relies on standoff weapons to survive, the B-21 is built to fly into denied airspace, so deliver weapons directly over the target area and exit before defensive systems can engage effectively. The limitation is that the platform is new and unproven in operational conditions. Flight testing does not replicate the complexity of combat, particularly against adaptive adversaries who may develop new detection techniques or countermeasures. The other limitation is cost and production rate. Each B-21 is expensive, and the Air Force has stated a requirement for at least 100 aircraft. But production timelines and budget stability will determine whether that number is reached. If production is slower than planned, the bomber fleet will remain dependent on aging B-52s and a small number of B-2s for penetration missions. The M1A2 SEPV-3 Abrams is the latest variant of a tank that entered service in 1980. It weighs approximately 73 tons with full combat load. The primary armament is a 120mm smoothbore cannon capable of firing armor-piercing, fin-stabilized discarding sabot rounds, high-explosive anti-tank rounds, and canister rounds for close-in defense. The tank is powered by a gas turbine engine that provides high horsepower but consumes fuel rapidly. The armor package includes composite materials, reactive armor tiles, and depleted uranium inserts in frontal areas. The Abrams is designed for offensive armored warfare in open terrain. It can engage and destroy enemy armor at ranges exceeding 2 kilometers using advanced fire control systems that incorporate laser rangefinding, thermal imaging, and automatic lead calculation. The SEPV-3 upgrade includes improved targeting sensors, a more powerful auxiliary power unit, a better network connectivity, and enhanced armor packages designed to defeat modern anti-tank guided missiles. The tank is not designed for urban warfare, though it has been used in that role. Its size, weight, and fuel consumption make it difficult to maneuver in tight streets, and its armor is less effective against top-attack weapons and improvised explosives. The limitation is strategic mobility. An Abrams cannot self-deploy across oceans. It must be transported by ship or heavy airlift, and even then, the number of tanks that can be moved quickly is limited by available airlift and sealift capacity. The other limitation is sustainment. The tank requires constant maintenance, particularly the turbine engine and track system. It also consumes fuel at a high rate, roughly 3 gallons per mile under cross-country conditions. This creates a logistics burden that restricts how far forward the tank can operate without resupply. In a sustained conflict, fuel and spare parts availability becomes as important as the tank's combat capability. The M2A4 Bradley infantry fighting vehicle is often overshadowed by the Abrams, but it is arguably more important in mechanized operations. The Bradley carries 6 dismounted infantry soldiers in the rear compartment, plus a crew of 3. It is armed with a 25mm chain gun, a coaxial 7.62mm machine gun, and a twin-tube TOW anti-tank missile launcher. The vehicle is lightly armored compared to a tank, but it is faster, more maneuverable, and capable of operating in environments where a 73-ton tank cannot go. The Bradley's role is to transport infantry under armor to the objective, suppress enemy infantry and light vehicles with the chain gun, and engage enemy armor with TOW missiles if necessary. The 25mm cannon is effective against personnel, unarmored vehicles, and light fortifications. The TOW missile provides standoff anti-armor capability, allowing the Bradley to engage enemy tanks without closing to direct fire range. The vehicle is also equipped with smoke grenade launchers, and in the A4 variant, an active protection system designed to intercept incoming anti-tank missiles and rocket-propelled grenades. The limitation is protection. The Bradley is not designed to absorb hits from tank main guns or large-caliber autocannons. It relies on mobility, suppression, and active defenses to avoid being hit in the first place. If those defenses fail, the vehicle is vulnerable, and the infantry it carries are at risk. The other limitation is capacity. Each Bradley only carries 6 dismounted soldiers, which means mechanized units require more vehicles to move the same number of troops compared to lighter or wheeled platforms. This increases the logistical footprint and the number of targets that must be protected during movement. The M142 HIMARS is a truck-mounted rocket artillery system that fires the same munitions as the larger M270 multiple launch rocket system, but from a lighter, more mobile platform. HIMARS carries 6 rockets or 1 ATAC-EMS tactical ballistic missile in a single pod mounted on a 5-ton truck chassis. The system can fire and displace within minutes, a capability known as shoot and scoot that complicates counter-fire targeting. The rockets include unguided area munitions, guided munitions with GPS-aided navigation, and extended range variants. The primary mission is precision fires at ranges beyond traditional tube artillery. The M31 guided rocket has a range of approximately 70 kilometers and a circular error probable of less than 10 meters. This allows HIMARS to strike specific buildings, vehicle concentrations, or command posts with minimal collateral damage. The ATAC-EMS missile extends range to 300 kilometers, allowing strikes deep into enemy rear areas against high-value targets like air defense nodes, ammunition depots, or headquarters. The limitation is ammunition availability. Each HIMARS launcher carries only 6 rockets. Once fired, the vehicle must return to a reload point, and reloading takes time. If the supply of rockets is insufficient, or if logistics are disrupted, the system cannot sustain high rates of fire. The other limitation is vulnerability to counter-battery fire. HIMARS is mobile, but it is not armored. If an adversary can detect the launch, calculate the position, and deliver counterfire before the vehicle displaces, HIMARS is highly vulnerable. This requires disciplined shoot-and-scoot procedures and robust counter-battery support. Patriot PC-3 is a surface-to-air missile system designed to intercept aircraft, cruise missiles, and short-range ballistic missiles. The system consists of a phased array radar, an engagement control station, power generation equipment, and multiple launchers. Each launcher can carry 16 PAC-3 MSE missiles, which are smaller and more maneuverable than earlier Patriot variants. The missile uses hit-to-kill technology, destroying the target through direct impact rather than proximity detonation. Patriot is deployed to provide air defense for critical assets such as air bases, ports, command centers, and troop concentrations. The radar can track multiple targets simultaneously and engage several at once using coordinated missile salvos. The PAC-3MSE variant has improved range, altitude, and maneuverability compared to earlier versions, and it is capable of intercepting tactical ballistic missiles in their terminal phase. Patriot batteries are mobile but require significant setup time. Emplacing the system, calibrating the radar, and integrating it into the broader air defense network can take hours. The limitation is capacity. Each battery has a finite number of missiles. Once those are expended, the battery is defensively ineffective until reloaded. If an adversary can saturate the system with more incoming threats than it has interceptors, some targets will leak through. The other limitation is radar horizon. Patriot is effective against high-altitude threats, but it has difficulty engaging low-flying cruise missiles or drones that remain below the radar's line of sight. This requires additional short-range systems to fill the gap. Patriot also cannot defend itself. If the battery is targeted by artillery, missiles, or aircraft, it relies on other systems for protection. The C-17 Globemaster III is a strategic airlift aircraft capable of carrying large, heavy cargo over intercontinental distances and landing on relatively short, austere runways. The aircraft can carry a payload of approximately 77 tons, depending on configuration. This includes vehicles, helicopters, artillery, ammunition, and troops. The cargo bay is wide enough to accommodate vehicles like the M1 Abrams, though only one tank fits per aircraft. The aircraft has 4 turbofan engines and a high-wing design that allows the cargo floor to sit low to the ground, facilitating rapid loading and unloading. The C-17 is designed for both strategic and tactical airlift. It can fly long distances using aerial refueling and then deliver cargo directly into forward airfields close to the combat zone. The aircraft's ability to operate from short runways means it does not depend entirely on large established air bases, which may be targeted or denied. The rear cargo ramp can be opened in flight for airdrop operations, allowing delivery of supplies and personnel by parachute when landing is not possible. The limitation is fleet size and availability. The U.S. Air Force operates roughly 220 C-17 CES. Not all are available for tasking at any given time due to maintenance cycles. If a major operation requires the movement of an entire armored brigade, the airlift demand exceeds what the fleet can provide in a short time frame. Sealift is more efficient for moving large quantities of heavy equipment, but it is also much slower. The other limitation is vulnerability. The C-17 is not a combat aircraft. It has limited defensive systems and relies on air superiority to operate safely. If adversary fighters or surface-to-air missiles threaten the airspace, C-17 operations must be curtailed or rerouted. The KC-135 Stratotanker entered service in 1957. The fleet currently consists of roughly 400 aircraft, most of which have been re-engined and upgraded with modern avionics. The KC-46 Pegasus is the replacement platform, a newer aircraft based on the Boeing 767 commercial airliner. The KC-46 can carry more fuel and cargo than the KC-135 and includes modernized refueling systems, but production and deployment have been slower than planned. Both aircraft serve the same mission: extending the range and endurance of combat aircraft through in-flight refueling. Aerial refueling is not optional for long-range operations. Most fighter aircraft, bombers, and reconnaissance platforms do not have sufficient internal fuel capacity to fly across oceans, loiter over target areas, and return to base without refueling. Tankers allow those aircraft to operate at extended ranges, remain on station longer, and launch from bases farther from the threat. Without tankers, the effective radius of U.S. air power contracts significantly. The limitation is that tankers are large, slow, and unarmed. They must operate in secure airspace or risk being shot down. If an adversary has long-range air-to-air missiles or surface-to-air systems that can reach tanker orbits, those orbits must be pushed farther from the combat zone, which reduces the efficiency of the refueling cycle and may make some missions infeasible. The other limitation is the number of refueling points. A tanker can only service a limited number of aircraft per sortie. If demand exceeds capacity, missions must be delayed or scrubbed. The KC-135 fleet is aging, and availability rates have declined as maintenance demands increase. The transition to KC-46 is ongoing but incomplete, and the combined fleet must support global operations across multiple theaters simultaneously.